Chapter 1. The Message That Changed My Day. My name is Elizabeth. I am 28 years old. I live in New York, but my heart does not live with me. Every morning feels the same. A long day I did not choose. My phone rings again and again. It is my mother. She never calls to ask if I am happy. She only calls to remind me how I should live today. Her message said, Elizabeth, remember the big party tomorrow. Many people will be there. You must look perfect. Your father wants to introduce you to Daniel again. I looked at the message and closed my eyes. I wanted to scream. I whispered to myself, why can't they just let me breathe? I had everything money could buy. Clothes, a house, a car. But no one asked what I truly wanted. My parents owned hotels across the city. People called them successful, but I called them strangers. They thought love meant control. They believed power was peace. But I had seen how lonely they were. They never laughed together. They spoke to each other like business partners. I didn't want that life. My mother said, Daniel was the best man for me. He was rich, polite, and from a good family. But when I talked to him, I felt empty. He always talked about himself, his new car, his new deal, his next trip. Once I told him, I like simple things. He smiled and said, you'll forget about simple when you have everything. That moment something broke inside me. I didn't want everything. I only wanted peace. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept going back to my parents' words. You will thank us later. But what if I never do? What if I lose myself while trying to please them? I sat near the window and watched the lights outside. The city looked alive, but I felt dead inside. Then a small idea came to me. It was a little wild, a little crazy, but it made me smile for the first time that day. I whispered, maybe I'll surprise them this time. The next morning I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes looked tired, but there was something new in them. Courage. I said softly, I will not live like a puppet anymore. My maid came in and said, Ma'am, your mother called again. I smiled and said, tell her I am busy. She looked shocked. No one ever said that to my mother before. All day I kept thinking about my plan. I didn't know how I would do it. I just knew I needed someone who could help me. Not a friend, not Daniel, someone different, someone who didn't care about my name or money. I wanted a person who saw me like a human being, not a prize. I didn't know where to find that person, but I felt something pulling me outside. In the evening I walked to the park near my house. I sat on a bench and watched people passing by. Families laughed together. Couples held hands. I felt a small ache in my heart. Will I ever have that? I whispered. My eyes moved to a man sitting alone near the fountain. His clothes were old. His hands looked rough, but there was peace on his face, the kind I never saw at home. He looked calm, like the world couldn't hurt him. I don't know why, but my feet started walking toward him. He looked up, and our eyes met. My heart beat fast. I didn't feel fear. I felt curiosity. For a second it felt like time stopped. He waited for me to speak, and I finally said, Excuse me, I need your help. He looked confused. My help? He asked quietly. I nodded and said, Yes. Tomorrow night, I need you to come with me to a party. I'll pay you. He frowned. You want me to come to a party? I nodded again. As my boyfriend. Just for one night. He blinked, shocked. Then a small smile came to his face. You're serious, aren't you? I said. Completely. He looked down, then back at me. Why me? I said softly. Because you don't know my world. He looked into my eyes for a long moment. Then he said, All right. If you're sure I can do it. I couldn't believe it. Thank you, I whispered. He smiled a little and said, I hope you know what you're doing. I said, I don't, but for once I want to choose my own mistake. He laughed gently. Then I'll see you tomorrow. I nodded. Be at my house by 6. I'll send someone to pick you up. He said, my name's Adam. I smiled. Elizabeth. As I walked back home, my heart felt strange. For years I had followed every rule. But tonight I broke one and it felt good. I looked up at the sky and whispered, this time I'll live for myself. I didn't know that this small plan would change my whole life. Like, subscribe, and share. Read this story and many more on our website, bookishenglish.com. Link in the description. Chapter 2. The Stranger in the Park. That night I could hardly sleep. Every time I closed my eyes I saw his calm face near the fountain. I kept asking myself, did I really ask a stranger to pretend to be my boyfriend? It sounded crazy, yet I felt no fear. Something about him felt safe, like a quiet voice saying, trust once in your life. Morning came too soon. I turned off my phone before my mother could call. For the first time, silence felt beautiful. I made coffee and smiled to myself. Tomorrow will be a show, I whispered. I had no idea what would happen, but my heart felt alive again. At noon my driver came and asked, ma'am, where should I go in the evening? I said to the park, the same place I met that man. Bring him here by 6. He looked confused but nodded. Everyone around me seemed curious. They had never seen me make my own plan before. Evening arrived slowly. I stood near the window waiting. I felt nervous. What if he doesn't come? What if he changes his mind? My heart beat fast when the car stopped outside. I walked to the door and my maid whispered, someone unusual is here. When I opened the door I almost laughed. Adam stood there trying to look confident. His shirt didn't fit well and his shoes looked borrowed, but his eyes were calm. He said softly, I hope I'm not too early. I said, no, you're right on time. My staff looked shocked. One of them whispered, who is he? I said firmly, he's my guest. Please help him. No one argued. They guided him inside. I watched as they gave him a haircut, clean clothes, and polished shoes. Step by step he began to look different. When he came out of the room, I couldn't speak. He smiled and said, is this good enough for your plan? I smiled back. Perfect. He laughed quietly. You look more nervous than me, I said, because I don't know what I'm doing. He looked into my eyes and said, sometimes not knowing is better than pretending. For a moment I forgot the plan. His words touched something inside me. I looked away and said, let's just get through tomorrow. He nodded. One night. That's what you asked for. We sat together and discussed the small details. I told him my parents' names, how they act, and what to expect. He listened carefully. I noticed how gentle his voice was. He never interrupted me. When I stopped talking, he said softly, you must be tired of pretending to be someone else. I froze. How do you know? He smiled. It's in your eyes. For the first time I wanted to tell someone everything. I told him how I grew up surrounded by rules, how I was told who to love, what to wear, what to say. He listened without judgment. When I finished, he said, tomorrow I'll stand beside you. You won't be alone anymore. Those words broke something open inside me. I felt a tear roll down my cheek. I quickly wiped it away and said, don't make me cry before the party. He said gently, crying isn't weakness. It's the first sign that you're still alive. I didn't answer. I just looked at him and thought, who are you really, Adam Walker? He seemed poor, yet his words carried peace, the kind I had been searching for all my life. Dinner time passed quietly. My phone kept ringing, but I didn't answer. My mother was probably planning every second of the next day, but I had my own plan now. Before he left, Adam said, I'll come tomorrow evening. Don't worry, I asked. Aren't you scared to face rich people who might laugh at you? He smiled. They can laugh. But respect doesn't wear expensive clothes. After he left, I stood alone thinking about those words. I whispered, respect doesn't wear expensive clothes. I repeated it again and again like a prayer. Maybe that was what I wanted all along. Respect, not luxury. Before going to bed, I wrote a small note to myself. Tomorrow I will stop being afraid. I folded it and kept it under my pillow. I wanted to remember that moment forever. The next morning, the house was full of noise. People ran around preparing for the grand party. My mother kept sending messages. Wear the blue dress, she said. Daniel's family will be there. I smiled and said nothing. She had no idea what surprise was waiting for them. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the car engine stopped outside again. My heart started to race. The maid ran in and said, "Ma'am, he's here." I walked to the door, took a deep breath and opened it. Adam stood there in a black suit. He looked simple yet confident. His eyes met mine and I felt calm for the first time in years. He said, "Ready?" I nodded. "Let's do this." We walked toward the car. My hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "Just breathe," he said softly. "Whatever happens, remember this is your life, not theirs." As we drove away, I looked at him and whispered, "Thank you for coming." He said, "Sometimes strangers meet for a reason." I didn't reply. I just looked out the window, knowing that after tonight, nothing in my life would ever be the same again. Chapter 3. Preparing for the lie. As the car stopped outside the hotel, my heart was beating fast. I had never felt this nervous in my life. Adam looked at me and said softly, "We can still turn back if you want." I shook my head. "No, I've already lived too long doing what others want. Tonight I live for myself." He smiled a little, as if proud of me. "Then let's give them a show," he said. We walked toward the grand entrance. People were already arriving, all dressed like they were going to meet a king. I took a deep breath and whispered, "Remember, just act like my boyfriend." He said gently, "I'll do better. I'll act like someone who cares." His words made me look at him differently for a second. I didn't answer, but my heart felt something I couldn't name. Inside, the music was loud. My mother saw me first. Her smile froze. My father turned confused. Then he saw Adam walking beside me. Everything went silent. People began whispering. My mother came close and said quietly, "Elizabeth, who is this man?" I smiled politely and said, "Mom, meet Adam. He's my boyfriend." She blinked. "Boyfriend?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I wanted you to meet him." Her face turned pale. My father joined her. "Elizabeth," he said, in a low, angry voice, "can we talk privately?" I shook my head. "Not tonight. You always talk privately when you want to control me. Let's just enjoy the party." Adam stood beside me, silent but firm. My father looked at him from head to toe. "And what do you do for a living?" he asked. Adam smiled politely. "I work with people, sir. Real people." That line made everyone quiet again. I tried not to laugh. Then Daniel, the man my parents wanted me to marry, appeared. His smile was fake as always. "So this is the boyfriend?" he said. "He looks different." Adam looked at him straight and said, "Yes, I'm different. I don't buy people. I respect them." That one line broke the air. Daniel's smile disappeared. My father's jaw tightened. My mother looked embarrassed. I whispered to Adam, "You didn't have to say that," he said softly. "I did. Someone had to." Dinner began. People watched us like we were part of a movie. My parents sat stiffly, their faces hard. But Adam stayed calm. He spoke kindly to the waiters, thanked everyone, and made people laugh with small jokes. I noticed how even the staff smiled around him. For the first time, I saw what true class looked Like, it wasn't in money. It was in kindness. During dinner, one guest said, "Elizabeth, your choice is unexpected." I smiled. Unexpected things are sometimes honest things. Adam looked at me with warmth in his eyes. I felt my heart soften. But peace didn't last long. Daniel came back, his voice louder now. "Elizabeth, you're making a mistake," he said. "You don't know this man. You don't know where he came from." I stood up and said quietly, "You're right. I don't know everything about him, but I know he treats me better than anyone in this room ever has." My father said sharply, "Enough. You're embarrassing us." Adam stood up beside me. "Sir, with respect, your daughter deserves to be herself, not your project." The room went silent again. My father's eyes turned cold. He said, "Elizabeth, come with me now." I followed him to the garden outside. The night air felt heavy. He said, "This game ends tonight." I said, "It's not a game, Father. It's my life." He looked shocked. I had never talked to him like that before. Adam came outside too. "Sir," he said gently, "she's not hurting anyone. She just wants to be heard." My father's voice rose. "You don't belong here," Adam said quietly. "Maybe not. But I'm still here because she asked me to be." My father walked away without saying another word. I turned to Adam and said softly, "You didn't have to defend me like that." He said, "When I see someone fighting alone, I can't stay quiet." I looked into his eyes and said, "Thank you. You were perfect tonight." He smiled. "It's funny. You said I had to pretend, but I didn't have to. It felt real." I froze. My heart skipped a beat. For a second, I forgot we were pretending. He looked down and said, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that." I said quietly, "Don't be sorry. Maybe pretending helped me see the truth." We both stood there quiet as if time had stopped. Somewhere inside me, I knew this night was only the beginning. Join our membership for exclusive English stories. Chapter 4. The Shock at the Party. After my father walked away, the music started again inside the hall. But something inside me had already changed. I looked at Adam and said quietly, "You were brave tonight." He smiled and said, "No, you were. I only followed your courage." His words touched me deeply. For a few seconds I didn't feel like I was living a lie anymore. When we walked back into the party, everyone was watching. People whispered behind their glasses. My mother stood near the table trying to smile, but I could see the anger in her eyes. She said softly, "Elizabeth, what have you done?" I replied, "I finally done something for myself." Daniel came closer, his voice full of fake calm. "Elizabeth, this joke has gone too far," he said. Adam stood beside me and answered, "It's not a joke when someone's trying to live free." Daniel looked at him with cold eyes. "You think you can stand beside her and make her forget who she is?" Adam smiled slightly and said, "She doesn't need to forget. She just needs to be herself." The room fell silent again. Everyone stopped talking, pretending not to listen, but listening to every word. My father sat down slowly. He looked tired, almost broken, but still proud. My mother kept holding her glass tightly, as if it was the only thing she could control. The dinner started. I sat next to Adam. My father didn't speak a word. My mother only gave short smiles that hid her worry. Daniel sat across the table, staring at us. He was angry, jealous, and hurt, but he hid it behind his fake charm. Adam leaned close and whispered, "Are you okay?" I nodded and said softly, "I'm fine. I just don't know what happens next." He smiled gently. "Whatever happens, you're not alone anymore." I looked at him for a moment and said, "You make me feel safe." He whispered back, "That's all I ever wanted to do tonight." One of the guests, a rich woman sitting Near my father said, "Your boyfriend is very different from the people we usually see here." Adam smiled kindly. "Different isn't always bad," he said. The woman smiled back and nodded. "You're right. Sometimes different is what we need." For a short while everyone laughed and talked again, but Daniel couldn't stay quiet for long. He stood up and said loudly, "Let's stop pretending. This man doesn't belong here. He's not one of us." Adam turned his head slowly and said, "Maybe you're right. But at least I don't lie to myself about who I am." Daniel's face turned red. "You don't know what you're talking about," Adam said calmly. "I know enough. I see how much fear looks like pride." The guests looked uncomfortable. My father said quietly, "Enough, both of you." But Daniel didn't stop. He said loudly, "Elizabeth, tell me the truth. You really think this man can make you happy?" I stood up. My voice was shaking, but my heart was steady. "Yes, I do," I said. "Because for the first time I feel seen. He doesn't treat me like a deal. He treats me like a person." There was silence again. No one dared to speak. My mother looked away. My father sighed heavily. I knew this night had broken something, but maybe it also fixed something inside me. After dinner I walked out to the small garden behind the hall to breathe. I heard footsteps behind me. It was Adam. He said softly, "You were strong tonight." I turned and said, "I wasn't strong. I was just tired of being quiet." He smiled. "Sometimes being tired is how strength begins." I looked at him for a long moment and said, "Why are you so calm about all this? People insulted you. They judged you." He said, "Because their words can't take away what's real. I know who I am. That's my peace." Something about his voice made me feel small and safe at the same time. I whispered, "I wish I had your peace." He said softly, "You will when you stop asking for permission to be yourself." I looked down and for a second tears filled my eyes. He gently said, "Don't cry tonight. You won your first battle," I said. "It doesn't feel like a win." He smiled. "Freedom never feels easy in the beginning." We stood there quietly. The sound of people talking inside felt far away now. I looked at him and asked, "Adam, why did you really agree to help me?" He looked serious for a moment and said, "Because you reminded me of someone I lost." I froze. "Who?" He looked away. "Someone I loved. Someone who also forgot what peace looked like." His voice broke a little. My heart felt heavy. I said softly, "I'm sorry." He smiled again, but this time it was sad. "Don't be. Helping you helped me remember what I once promised her. To never stop being kind." For a long moment neither of us spoke. The night felt still, like everything around us was holding its breath. I finally said, "Tomorrow they will be even more angry." He said then, "Tomorrow will stand stronger." I nodded. "I hope I don't lose you after this." He looked into my eyes. "You won't lose me. Not even if the whole world stands against you." Something inside melted. I whispered, "Thank you for being here." He said softly, "You don't have to thank me, Elizabeth. You just have to keep believing in yourself." We went back inside. The party was ending. My parents didn't say a word as I walked past them, but I saw my father's eyes. Not anger now, just confusion and pain. I knew change had begun, slowly, quietly. That night I realized something powerful. Sometimes one act of courage can shake an entire world built on lies. Chapter 5. Truth Beneath the Garden Lights. When the last guest left, silence took over the big house. I sat alone, my heart still heavy from everything that happened. The laughter of the party was gone, but the words people said kept echoing inside my head. My mother's worried face, my father's cold eyes, Daniel's fake smile. I saw them all again when I closed my eyes. I wanted peace, but I knew peace never comes without pain. I walked slowly to the garden where soft light still glowed. My steps felt weak, but my mind was awake. And there, sitting quietly on a chair, was Adam. He was waiting for me, calm and gentle, like he had been all along. He looked up when he saw me and said softly, "You survived the storm." His voice was kind, not proud, just full of quiet strength. I gave a tired smile. "I didn't survive it, Adam," I said. "I just stopped running from it." He nodded slowly. "That's what real strength looks like." His words sank into me. I felt like I could finally breathe again, but a small voice inside me still whispered that something was missing. I sat beside him and looked at the light on his face. I said I should feel afraid after what happened, but I don't. I feel free. He turned to me and said, "Freedom is always scary in the beginning, but later it becomes peace." I watched him for a moment. His face looked calm, but his eyes were deep and full of secrets. "You talk like someone who has lived many lives," I said softly. He smiled and looked down. "Maybe I have." For a long moment neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was honest. I wanted to ask him so many questions. He was a stranger, yet I felt like I had known him forever. I finally said, "Can I ask you something personal?" He nodded without hesitation. I took a breath and said, "Who are you really, Adam? I mean, where did you come from? You don't act like a man who has nothing." He didn't answer right away. His eyes grew thoughtful, and for a second I saw pain on his face. Then he said quietly, "You won't believe me if I tell you." I looked straight at him. "Try me." He took a long breath and his voice changed. "My real name is not Adam Walker," he said slowly. I froze. Then, "Who are you?" He looked into my eyes and said, "My real name is Warren Blake." I stared at him in shock. Warren Blake. That name sounds familiar. He nodded. "Once. It should. My family owns Blake Enterprises." My heart jumped. "You mean the huge company downtown?" He said, "Yes." I couldn't believe it. "Then why would you pretend to be someone poor?" He smiled gently and his eyes turned sad. "Because I was tired of being seen as a name, not a man. People only cared about what I owned, not who I was. So one day I walked away from everything. I wanted to see how it feels to have nothing and still be respected." His words went deep into me. "So you chose this life?" I asked softly. He nodded. "For 1 year I lived without my money, without my name. I talked to strangers, shared food with people who had nothing, and I learned something. The poorest people were often the richest in heart." I couldn't speak. I looked at him, trying to understand. "So all this time you were testing people?" He shook his head gently. "No, I was testing myself. I wanted to know if I could still be kind when no one was watching." I looked down. My voice broke a little when I said, "You helped me tonight when I was broken and I didn't even know who you were." He smiled softly. "That's the best part. You didn't ask about my name. You just talked to me like a person. That's why I said yes to your plan." Tears filled my eyes. "So while I was trying to teach my parents a lesson, you were teaching me one," he said quietly. "Maybe both of us were searching for the same thing. Real people in a fake world." His words made me feel both weak and alive at the same time. I whispered, "Why didn't you tell me before?" He said, "Because I wanted you to see me first before you saw the man with a famous last name." For a few seconds neither of us moved. Then he reached forward and wiped the tear that fell from my cheek. "Don't cry, Elizabeth," he said softly. "You found the real me before anyone else did." I looked into his eyes and said, "And what happens now? Will you go back to your old world?" He smiled faintly. "Maybe someday. But first I want to finish learning what it means to be human again." I couldn't stop the tears anymore. I said, "I spent my whole life surrounded by people who wanted power, But tonight, sitting here with you, I feel more alive than I ever did. He smiled kindly and said, sometimes, love doesn't come from those who have everything. Comes from those who lost everything and still choose to care. I nodded, my heart trembling. You're right, I whispered. And maybe that's what I want. Something real, not perfect. Then I heard my father's voice shouting from inside. Elizabeth, come back in here right now. I looked at Warren, nervous. He smiled calmly. Go. Face him, I said. What if he doesn't let me see you again? He looked into my eyes and said, then I'll wait, even if I have to wait outside your gate forever. His words felt like a promise written in my soul. I walked inside and my father stood near the door, angry and red-faced. You will never see that man again, he said. My voice was quiet but steady. You're wrong, father. He's not what you think, he shouted. He has nothing. I took a step forward and said, he has honesty. That's something money can't buy. My father had no answer. He turned away silently and I walked back to the garden. Warren was still there, waiting, like he promised. When he saw me, he smiled and said softly, I told you I'd wait. My eyes filled again and I said, you kept your word. He nodded. Truth never leaves the one who believes in it. His words wrapped around my heart like peace. That night, for the first time, I wasn't afraid of losing anything because I had finally found something real. Sometimes we don't find truth in rich houses or shining names. Sometimes truth waits quietly in the heart of someone who has nothing to prove. And when you find that kind of truth, it doesn't break you. It heals you. Chapter 6. The Man Behind the Mask. The night after my father's anger, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Warren said, that he once had everything but chose to live with nothing. His truth had shaken something inside me. I realized that all my life I was trying to look perfect for people who never truly saw me. Warren didn't see perfection. He saw pain and still stayed. The next morning I woke up feeling lighter. My phone was full of my mother's messages, but I didn't open them. I didn't want their noise to drown my new peace. I just wanted to see him again. I sent a small message. Are you okay? He replied within minutes. Better than ever. You were brave last night. Those words made my heart warm. I didn't need a poem, just honesty. Later that day, he came to meet me near the small cafe where we first agreed to the plan. He looked calm as always, but this time his eyes carried more truth than mystery. I said softly, you lied about your name, but I don't feel angry. He smiled and said, I didn't lie, Elizabeth. I only waited until you were ready to see all of me. His words were simple, but they felt deep. I said, you know, what's strange? I trusted you more when you had nothing. He looked down for a second and said, that's why I fell for you. My heart stopped. What did you just say? He smiled shyly. I said I fell for you. I didn't mean to, but I did. I didn't speak for a moment. I looked at him and said softly, you shouldn't have. I started this as a lie. He nodded. Maybe, but real feelings don't wait for the right beginning. They just happen. His voice was steady, but his eyes were full of emotion. I whispered, Warren, I don't know if I'm ready for this. He said, you don't need to be ready. You just need to be honest. We sat in silence, both understanding more than words could express. Then he said quietly, you taught me something. Even people who have everything can be lonely. I replied, and you taught me that sometimes people who look poor carry the richest hearts. He laughed softly. I guess we fixed each other without planning it. Before leaving, he looked at me and said, whatever happens next, don't let fear choose your life again. I said, I won't. But promise me one thing. Don't disappear like everyone else. He smiled. You found the real me, Elizabeth. I'm not leaving. I watched him walk away and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the kind that comes from promises, but the kind that grows quietly inside. When you finally see someone who understands you. That evening my father came to my room. His face looked softer than before. He said, I was too hard on you. I looked at him in surprise. You were honest, father. That's rare, he sighed. Maybe that man was right. Money can't give peace. I didn't answer. I only smiled. For the first time he saw me not as his daughter but as a person. And somewhere, deep inside I knew life was about to change again. Not with noise or fear, but with truth, love and forgiveness. Chapter 7. The choice of the heart. Days passed, but my heart stayed restless. Warren had shown me truth and now I had to face mine. My parents were quiet yet I could feel their worry in every look. I wasn't angry anymore. I just wanted them to see that love isn't a mistake when it is honest. One evening my father called me to the living room. His voice was calm this time. Elizabeth, he said, I don't understand your choices but I can't keep fighting you. His words softened something inside me. I said quietly, I never wanted to fight you. I only wanted to live my life. He nodded, tired but gentle. Maybe I forgot that you're not my little girl anymore. I smiled through tears. You didn't lose me, father. You only needed to let me grow. He looked down for a moment and then said, Does that man truly make you happy? I whispered. He gives me peace. My father took a deep breath. Then I won't stand in your way. Those few words felt like freedom. I wanted to cry but instead I hugged him. He held me close and said softly, Be careful with your heart. Later that night I met Warren again. He smiled when he saw me and said, You look lighter. I said, Because my father finally let me breathe. Warren's eyes softened. Then it's time we start living for real. I looked at him, still afraid of the world but no longer afraid of myself. I choose you, I said quietly. He smiled and held my hand. And I choose the woman who taught me what truth feels like. In that moment I understood love was not about perfection. It was about choosing the same heart every day, even when life tried to change it. Chapter 8. The plan that changed everything. A few months passed, yet the memory of that night stayed bright in my heart. Life slowly found its shape again. My parents spoke less about money and more about peace. Sometimes my father would say, I understand now, Elizabeth. Happiness isn't something we can buy. Those words healed me more than he knew. Warren and I began to build our new life. Step by step. He went back to his company but this time with a softer heart. He said, I want this business to help people, not just make profit. I started painting again, something I had stopped years ago. When he visited my small art studio, he said with a smile, I finally see you doing what you love. I looked at him and said, Because for the first time I'm living for myself. One afternoon my mother came to see me. She looked different, calmer. Your father and I were wrong, she said quietly. We wanted safety for you but we forgot that love is the only safe place. I took her hand and said, You didn't lose me. You helped me find my courage. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, I'm proud of you, Elizabeth. For the first time I believed it. Weeks later Warren surprised me with a simple idea. He said, Let's start something that helps those who have no home. You once said, Peace matters more than money. Let's give that peace to others. His plan touched me deeply. We opened a small charity in the city, giving food and shelter to people who had lost everything. Each evening when I saw their smiles, I remembered the man I met by the fountain, the stranger who had changed my world. One night we sat together after a long day of work. The city lights were far away but his words were close. He said softly, Remember your secret plan, the one that started it all. I laughed. Gently. How could I forget? It was supposed to be fake. He held my hand and said, it wasn't fake. It was destiny wearing a disguise. My heart melted. I whispered, you found me when I was lost. He smiled. And you helped me find my heart again. Sometimes I still think about that girl who wanted to escape her golden cage. She had no idea that her small act of courage would open every door she truly needed. I now know that real love doesn't start with perfection. It starts with truth. The plan that began as a lie became the story that saved us both. And maybe that's what life really is. A mix of mistakes that slowly lead us home.